My name is Philip Shaw. I'm here in Dresden, Ontario. We're starting off our East-West videocast this week talking about the World Health Organization's role in dealing with the coronavirus. And I'm here with Dr. Enamul Haque. And go ahead, Enamul, you can start us off.
So this is Enamul Haque, and we wanted to discuss issues that is quite relevant right now, which is the debate that is happening with the WHO on coronavirus. The question that we have in our mind is that whether the WHO has done the right thing in terms of dealing with this. So in terms of dealing with it, let me put it this way. I think the WHO is responsible for alerting global governments around the world for telling them what to do. It's a scientific body. With a scientific body, they advise governments. In this particular case, if you go to the history a little bit, it was in January, if I believe it's 11 January when they first alerted, and they got the alert from the Chinese. The first alert was that this is a new virus, which is completely different. And so they alerted everyone what to do with it. From then on, there has been the debate and given a warning, and I think it was not until the 11th of March when they have finally said it's a pandemic. Between this time, a lot of people have died. And so there is a question that whether they have done it properly in terms of declaring the pandemic early or not. Now, I understand the debate that is happening. The debate is coming up because there is a degree of inconvenience from certain governments around the world that this would have been done earlier. But my understanding is that if you do it quite early, and if you want to do it in a way that you want to say things much earlier, the warning may not be as the thing may not go as bad as it is. And if things does not go as bad as it is, then sometimes warning may become very difficult for people to follow later on. So the organizations who are dealing with warning, they normally think about the scientific basis of it, and until it is created, they don't do about it. That's the first point that I would say. The second point that is important, WHO itself is not a clean organization in the sense previously they have been working with certain governments. And if you remember, during Obama era, the Obama first time agreed White House first time declared that they will never use WHO for vaccination issues, and particularly in terms of using for spying. So I understand that certain times certain governments are happy when they are doing their work for them, and certain times they are not happy. So to me, WHO should remain as a scientific organization, and they should behave as a scientific organization for everyone and help every government around the world to deal with health related issues. In particular, there are millions of children, there are millions of elderly people in trouble around the world, and they normally alert governments on dealing with it.
It is an incredible problem. And if you think about it, we're looking at over 2 million cases, 2.2 million cases worldwide with 154,000 deaths, and that's all we know about. So it's an extremely difficult problem, a world-changing event that we all have to deal with, and it's incredibly difficult as we're locked down all around the world. The WHO was formed in 1948, a UN agency that monitored some of the problems that we've had around the world. I tend to think that it's a good thing. They've done work with H1N1, Ebola, and SARS in the past, as well as helping to solve the smallpox epidemic that we had many years ago. With regard to an East to West dialogue, President Trump on April 7th said that the WHO blew it. And, it's unfortunately when you've got over 2 million cases confirmed and you have all kinds of economic damage, you're going to get some type of pushback from people that want to go back to work again, that don't necessarily understand the nuances of everything that's going on. So it's a terrible, difficult issue. The government of Taiwan had criticized the WHO because they claimed that WHO ignored the Taiwan warning about what was going on in China and some of their early warnings from their country. So the bottom line is it's pretty difficult to it's pretty difficult to be critical and be above the criticism, especially at a time like this. I tend to prefer that we'd have a WHO fully funded and keep going, because I think that they probably do a lot of good. Certainly there's been mistakes made. There's probably been overestimations of what's going on in China, or underestimations, I should say, of what might be happening there and other places in the world. But as it is now, we're in quite a mess, and I think the WHO has a role to play, and maybe that'll have to be enhanced in the future. I don't know if you want to join me with ending this off, Enamul, but it's a very difficult problem.
No, I agree, Phil, that this is the WHO has done a good job in terms of defining it, in terms of setting up the laboratories, in terms of giving references. In fact, all of these were done properly. And my point that I always believe that WHO is a fantastic organization working with millions of people in Africa, in Asia, particularly with the children with polio, with measles, all these vaccination programs. They have been doing fantastic program. So I think from a scientific community, this is a good coordinating committee. This particular organization has been functioning pretty well. Even though I mentioned that there are cases when it did not perform as much as we were expecting, but this should function properly, and instead of criticizing it, we should all lend our support and help the organization.
Well, that is certainly the way I feel. I know there's lots of nuances with regard to many other people that feel differently around the world, but that's just part and parcel of what we'll be chatting about in this video cast in weeks to come. Thanks very much, Enamul.